More women are sharing their personal experiences with early pregnancy loss. The American College of OBGYNs. These are two words I don't say often.
Yeah, obstetricians.
Obstetricians and gynecologists.
There you go.
Estimates about 1 in 10 pregnancies. You tried at home. You won't be able to say it either. Beyonce, Michelle Obama, Carrie Underwood, and recently Meghan McCain all spoke publicly about their miscarriages in hopes of breaking the culture of silence.
Traffic anchor Jamie Stelter of New York One, a 24-hour news channel that we know well here in New York City, shared her fertility struggles on social media and live TV. Stelter revealed she has five miscarriages while trying to conceive. In an op-ed for Glamour magazine, she writes this: "The sting of all the loss and the trauma fades for sure, but it never goes away. I wear these losses like scars. They each have their own story to tell, with dates and numbers and wait times. But how can you possibly quantify them? You can't." Stelter has a 2-year-old daughter. Her name is Sunny, and she's due to have another baby, yay, in 2 weeks. She joins us now with our Dr. Tara Narula to discuss. Welcome to you both. Bravo to you, Jamie, for telling the story. You tell it in such detail, and it's so poignant, so painful, but at the same time, so powerful. And I like what you said about every woman has a story by the numbers. Help us understand your number story when it comes to this.
Well, it wasn't until I had miscarriages and I started going through fertility treatments that I realized there was this giant club of women who were all speaking in their own language in terms of how many miscarriages. And then there's all of the how long until you have to wait until you get your period again after a miscarriage. How long is a pregnancy? And as soon as you get pregnant, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm having a baby in 40 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And then when you have a miscarriage, you have to sort of, quote, start over. And it's very overwhelming when you think about these numbers on a day-to-day basis. And you're trying to wrap your head around it, and you're grieving at the same time, and then you're also trying to live your normal life at the same time.
Many people in your life may not even know that you were pregnant, and so a lot of the suffering, a lot of the grieving is happening in private.
Well, we're in a culture where you're taught to not talk about your pregnancy until the 3-month mark.
Yes.
So most miscarriages happen in those first 3 months. So if you never told people you were pregnant, you're surely not going to march around and tell people that you had a miscarriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tara, miscarriage is so common, and yet many women suffer in silence, which is heartbreaking to learn. Why is there still a stigma?
Well, yeah, first of all, I want to thank Jamie and all the other women who open up, because they're going to break down the stigma. It's that vulnerability and honesty that's going to bring empathy and understanding and support, which is really what we need. I think the stigma is multifactorial. You know, as women, so much of our sense of self is tied into motherhood and fertility. And when we lose a child, the feeling is, I somehow lost it. I failed. There's something wrong with me or my body, and there's a tremendous amount of shame and guilt. And we tend to insulate and not share that. I think what Jamie mentioned also, which is we're told culturally, don't talk about your pregnancy until the end of the first trimester, means that when we lose the baby, there's not that outpouring of community support to give us love and embrace us. Also, when you lose someone, a parent or a friend, we mark it in our culture with rituals, with ceremonies, religious rites. We don't have anything like that when it comes from miscarriage. But that invisible loss, there's the same sense of profound grief and trauma that there is with any other kind of loss.
I thought it was interesting, Jamie, that you wrote, you would think having Sunny, and I see you wear a necklace that says Sunny around your neck.
I do.
You would think having Sunny would make it easier for you, but in many respects it made it harder for you to go through this.
It did, because first of all, you see how beautiful having a child is, and you see that it can work. So when I had 2 miscarriages between Sunny and this healthy pregnancy, it's, why can't my body do this again?
No, and you
Am I
talk
not
about
meant
women.
to do it?
You talk about women who have a baby, and you think, why are they trying to have another one? They at least have one, and I don't even have one to begin.
Oh,
with.
I thought
that was
looked at
interesting.
everyone complaining or being sad about secondary infertility, and I'm like, you have one.
Yes.
You're being so greedy. So then I felt guilty about that greed after I had Sunny. Like, should I just be happy with her and stop? But the truth is that we want her to have a sibling.
Yes.
When you break a silence on a subject like this, it's always a little bit scary, but I'm curious to learn what you heard from other women after the story came out, and what are the benefits of sharing this type of story?
Just when I was in your makeup room, I was getting another private message from a woman telling me her story. I get these stories on a daily basis on all my social media platforms. And after I wrote the Glamour op-ed, I went to my bosses at New York One and I said, I am overwhelmed and inundated by these stories. We have to do something. So we organized a panel of women to talk about miscarriage, because these women are looking for a venue to talk about their feelings and, like you were saying, to create a vocabulary around the grief of it all.
Was it easier for you to talk about it because you are pregnant with another baby coming up in 2 weeks? Was it easier for you to step out there in a very private and personal way?
Absolutely. And I tell women that when they come to me and they ask me questions, I always say, listen, it's so much easier from where I sit to tell you how to act and what I think is best for you to do, because look at me.
Who's most at risk, Tara?
Right.
Briefly, can you say?
Yeah, so we know 80% of these happen in that first trimester, and half of those are due to genetic or chromosomal abnormalities with the embryo, which are totally random events. However, one thing that increases the risk of that is advanced maternal age, so when you're over 35. So 20% risk of miscarriage around 35, that jumps to about 40% when you're 40. Previous early pregnancy loss can be a risk factor. There's certain medical conditions, thyroid conditions, PCOS, clotting disorders, obesity, and even uterine conditions that can raise risk.
All right, guys. Well, there was silence around it, but I'm glad that silence is ending, and we brought that to this table.
Bravo,
here this
Jamie.
morning.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much.